Many believe that lust is a mere carnal temptation, but for the chosen ones, it is something far deeper. It is not just a struggle of the flesh, it is a battle of the mind, a test of the spirit. Why? Because those who walk in divine power also possess immense creative energy. And where there is great power, there is also great responsibility. Lust, at its core, is not about physical desire alone. It is a misdirected force, an unmastered energy seeking expression. The very imagination that makes the chosen ones powerful is the same tool that can lead them into struggle. But understand this: your battle with lust is not proof of weakness, it is proof of your transformation. The war between the spirit and the flesh is not meant to break you, but to refine you. Now let us explore 5 reasons why the chosen ones secretly struggle with lust, and more importantly, how to overcome it. Lust is not merely a temptation of the flesh. It is the manifestation of the creative force within you. As a chosen one, your thoughts carry an unusual potency. What you dwell upon expands. What you assume to be true hardens into fact. This is the law of assumption, and it governs everything in your reality, including your struggles with lust. Most people fight temptation as if it were an external force pressing upon them. But the truth is that lust originates from within, from the deep reservoir of unshaped creative energy that you have yet to master. Desire in itself is neither good nor evil. It is neutral, a raw force awaiting direction. When God endowed man with imagination, he gave him the power to create, to call things into existence, to shape the unseen into the seen. But when imagination lacks divine purpose, it seeks expression in whatever form is most immediate, most accessible. For many, that means sensual indulgence. Lust is nothing more than energy misdirected, a force seeking release through the lower faculties instead of the higher. The chosen ones struggle with lust, not because they are weak, but because their ability to feel, to see, to assume is more intensified than those around them. Think about it. How many times have you found your mind wandering, your imagination conjuring images so vivid they feel real? How often do you sense an almost magnetic pull towards certain desires, as if they have a life of their own? This is not accidental. Your imagination is always working, always forming realities. The law of assumption does not sleep. If you persistently entertain lustful thoughts, even passively, they begin to materialize in your world. The desires that seem to control you are merely the outpicturing of the states you have unconsciously accepted. This is why chosen ones struggle in ways others do not. The average person can dwell on fleeting temptations without seeing immediate consequences. But for you, what you assume, what you repeatedly feel as true, becomes your lived experience. The speed at which your thoughts manifest means that you must be highly intentional with what you allow to take root in your mind. Every thought is a seed, and lust is a seed that, once planted, grows into an all-consuming fire. The mistake is in believing that lust is a matter of physical discipline alone. It is not. It is a battle of consciousness. If you attempt to suppress desire without addressing its root, the assumptions that fuel it, you will find yourself in a cycle of temporary victories followed by inevitable defeats. What you resist persists. To overcome lust, you must not fight it as if it were a force outside of you, but rather you must transform it at the source. You must assume a new state. If you continually identify as someone who struggles with lust, your subconscious mind will accept this as your truth and reinforce it. But the moment you assume yourself to be someone who is pure, powerful, and in control of your creative faculties, everything begins to shift. The desire itself does not disappear. Rather, it is redirected. Energy that once sought physical gratification now moves toward higher expressions, toward your purpose, your vision, your destiny. Lust is only powerful when it is left undirected. It is not the enemy, it is merely an indication that you are brimming with untapped creative force. The very imagination that makes you vulnerable to temptation is the same tool that can set you free. What you assume, you become. Redirect your imagination, and lust will lose its grip on you, not by force, but by transformation. When a person awakens spiritually, they often believe that the struggle with the flesh will naturally fade away. They assume that enlightenment will instantly override every carnal desire, that the mind will be filled only with divine thoughts, and that the battle with lust will simply cease to exist. But this is not the case. In fact, the opposite often happens. The struggle intensifies. The reason for this is simple. The body does not immediately follow the mind. While the spirit may have been renewed, the body and its ingrained habits are still subject to the old programming, the deeply rooted patterns of desire that have been reinforced over time. This creates an internal conflict, a war between who you are becoming and who you once were. Chosen ones feel this battle more intensely than others because they are in a state of transformation. They are no longer fully attached to the ways of the world, yet they have not completely detached from it either. They exist in a space between, where they are aware of higher spiritual truths but still feel the pull of earthly desires. Lust, in this context, is not just about the physical act, it is about the mind's attachment to pleasure, to indulgence, to the temporary satisfaction that feeds the flesh but starves the spirit. The struggle is not a sign of failure, it is evidence of growth. Before awakening, a person may not have even recognized lust as a problem. It was simply a part of life, something natural, something expected. But once the mind begins to ascend, once higher awareness takes root, lust is seen for what it truly is, an obstacle, a distraction, a test. It is not just about avoiding temptation, it is about mastering the self. The chosen ones do not struggle because they are weak. They struggle because they are transitioning from one state of consciousness to another, and every transition comes with resistance. The body has been conditioned to respond in certain ways. It has been trained by years of repeated behaviors, reinforced by emotions and experiences. When you attempt to shift into a higher state of being, the old patterns do not simply vanish, they resist. The flesh does not give up its grip easily. It remembers what once brought it pleasure, and it seeks to reclaim that experience. This is why lust can feel like an overwhelming force, as if it comes out of nowhere, as if it has a mind of its own. It is not an external enemy, it is the residue of past conditioning. The key to overcoming this struggle is not suppression, but transcendence. Many make the mistake of trying to force themselves into purity, trying to deny what they feel rather than understanding it. But suppression only strengthens the desire. What is repressed grows in power, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to reemerge. The real solution is to rise above it, to shift your identity, to assume a new state of being where lust no longer holds power over you. Lust thrives on identification. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with lust, you will continue to struggle. But if you begin to see yourself as someone who is beyond its reach, someone whose mind is focused on higher things, the desire will begin to fade, not by force, but by lack of attention. What you focus on expands. What you ignore weakens. This is the power of consciousness. The battle between the spirit and the flesh is not meant to defeat you. It is meant to refine you. It is a necessary part of the process, a sign that you are evolving. The struggle is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It is showing you where you are still attached, where your mind has yet to be fully renewed. The chosen ones do not struggle because they are lost. They struggle because they are being prepared for something greater. And once mastery is achieved, the very desires that once controlled them become nothing more than distant echoes of a past self that no longer exists. Lust is not just about physical attraction or momentary temptation. It is a reflection of one's inner state. It reveals what has been cultivated in the subconscious mind, what has been entertained in secret, and what has been given life through repeated thoughts and feelings. The chosen ones being highly imaginative and spiritually aware, often struggle more intensely with lust because their minds are powerful projectors. What they think, they feel, what they assume, they experience, and what they persist in imagining, they bring into reality. Every external desire is a mirror of something internal. If lust continues to arise, it is not because the temptation is unavoidable, but because there is something within that still responds to it. The outer world is never separate from the inner world. The people, the situations, and the desires that seem to appear out of nowhere are actually drawn into one's experience by the subconscious state of being. This is why two people can be in the same environment but perceive it differently. One may walk into a place and feel nothing, while another is instantly overwhelmed with desire. The difference is not in the external world, it is in the internal state of consciousness. The struggle with lust is not about the object of desire itself, but about the mental images and beliefs that have been accepted over time. If the mind has been conditioned to associate certain people, places, or situations with pleasure, then lust will arise automatically in response. This is not random, it is the law of assumption in action. What you habitually entertain in thought becomes the lens through which you see the world. If your subconscious has been fed with images and ideas rooted in lust, then your reality will reflect those assumptions back to you. Many chosen ones become frustrated with themselves, wondering why lust continues to be a battle despite their spiritual growth. The answer lies in what has been impressed upon the subconscious over the years. The mind does not simply forget what it has been trained to accept. It replays old patterns, repeats familiar emotions, and seeks out experiences that align with its internal programming. This is why lust can feel uncontrollable at times. It is a deeply ingrained state of mind, reinforced by past experiences and unchecked thoughts. But the power to change this lies within. Since lust is a reflection of the inner state, transformation must begin at the level of imagination. Fighting against lust directly is futile because what you resist persists. Instead, the focus must shift from resisting temptation to changing the mental imagery that produces it. If one consistently envisions themselves as pure, disciplined, and in control of their creative energy, the subconscious will begin to accept this new assumption as reality. The old images will fade and the corresponding desires will lose their intensity. The key is to recognize that the struggle with lust is not about external factors. It is about what has been allowed to take root in the mind. The chosen ones must take responsibility for their inner world, guarding their imagination with the same vigilance they would use to protect their most valuable possessions. Every thought is a seed, and whatever is planted will grow. If the mind is filled with images of purity, self-mastery, and divine purpose, then those qualities will be reflected in daily life. But if the imagination remains undisciplined, filled with fleeting pleasures and distractions, then the battle with lust will continue. Lust is not an enemy, it is a signal. It reveals where attention has been placed and what assumptions have been made. Instead of condemning oneself for struggling, the chosen ones must use this awareness to redirect their focus. The moment they cease to identify with lustful thoughts and instead assume a higher state of being, the struggle will begin to dissolve. What once seemed overpowering will become insignificant, not through force, but through the simple act of seeing oneself as something greater than desire itself. The chosen ones possess an extraordinary amount of spiritual and creative energy. This energy is what fuels their ability to manifest, to lead, and to walk in divine purpose. But when it is not directed properly, it seeks an outlet, often through lust. Lust is not just a physical craving, it is the byproduct of unchanneled creative force. When energy is not used for higher purposes, it does not simply disappear, it finds the path of least resistance. And for many, that path is sensual gratification. The struggle with lust is, at its core, a struggle with energy management. Those who have been called to a higher path often experience seasons of extreme emotional and spiritual intensity. This intensity, if not properly handled, can manifest as an overwhelming desire for physical release. It is not that lust is stronger in chosen ones, it is that their energy is more potent. They feel more deeply, they imagine more vividly, and their desires, whether pure or impure, are magnified. This is why it is dangerous for them to allow their energy to be misused. What might be a minor indulgence for the average person can become an sexual energy among the most powerful for someone operating at a higher spiritual level. It is the same energy that creates life, fuels passion, and drives ambition. But if it is not consciously directed, it can take control. Many chosen ones experience cycles of intense focus and then sudden moments of weakness. When their energy is high, they feel unstoppable, filled with purpose and clarity. But when that energy is not properly managed, it builds up internally, creating restlessness and tension. If they do not redirect it toward creation, it will find expression through lust. Lust is simply energy seeking a lower expression. When a person is idle, when they are not fully engaged in their purpose, their mind begins to wander. And since the subconscious mind operates based on past conditioning, it naturally drifts toward familiar pleasures. This is why those who are not actively pursuing their divine calling often struggle more with temptation. The mind, left unoccupied, will return to what it has known. But when energy is redirected into higher pursuits, whether through creative work, deep meditation, or meaningful action, the need for sensual gratification diminishes.